Well, here we are.
Okay, still clear?
Yep.
I haven't moved.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's,
I'm getting stiff.
it's okay to move your lips. All right. Red Thunder. Here we go again. It's Thursday, July 18th.
Yes.
Or actually, it's the 19th.
Oh,
And it's
excuse me.
Thursday. I know the date all day long, and then suddenly when I have to say it, I forget it. But it's Thursday night, July 18th. So
According to the exact tribal calendar, the Gregorian is out of whack.
that's why I can't relate to it. I don't know. Anyways,
Your tribal genetics are kicking in.
I hope so. So let's talk about there's a lot of people out there on the internet claiming that they know as much as you or more than you about international law, about tribal law, and they're not shy about going around talking about it. What's your reaction to that?
Well, see, why weren't none of them talking about this before I came along? Nobody. So there are a lot of people out there that are uh, purposely exploited to make themselves worthy or worth something to themselves. Because I'm not claiming ownership of anything. I'm carrying on what I was given as a responsibility to do. So I'm honoring my word. And it was passed to me by the late Meredith Quinn. So in saying that, I'm not being judgmental, but there's a lot of people out there that should shut up because they don't know what they're saying when they accuse me or attack me. They don't know what they're doing. Now, all of a sudden, they're all experts on something that they read or heard me say. Uh, for example, there's some of them that stole documents from Mrs. Quinn. They were supposed to return them, which they did not do. And I talked to her prior to her demise, before she passed on, in other words. And she said no, they were to return them, study them, and return them. Now, the only one that was ever to carry documents to any amount that I needed. But I never did take like they did. They took the whole lot. And apparently some of them are selling it. And they're getting wealthy on it. So I know who they are, and all I have to say to them is it's going to catch up with them. Because, if you're not following the spiritual order, uh, there are consequences. Now, there's also others who, of course, they listen in, they hear a little bit, or they come to one of the sessions that I do, and they learn a little bit, and then they run like hell with it. All of a sudden, they're the expert. And in actuality, they are not. And nobody has any business whatsoever to even present this unless they truly are a signatory Indian. It's fine to talk about it in this manner because in this manner, through Red Thunder, I hopefully have them properly educated, where the whole process is an educational process. Now, there are others who, sad to say, they're good people. They want to come on board, but they're out there pretending that, well, in some respects, they're pretending. And I get after them and I scold them. I don't write them off, or I don't put them down, and I don't judge them because I want them to put it out properly so that others will receive it properly. Because none of them were given to do it in this manner. None of them. Because there's some of them out there and they've gone ahead and put like I said earlier, put the cart before the horse. And they're finding out that there's people around them that in actuality are not as solid as they should be. In other words, you got to do this for life. And you got to understand with the treaty addressed properly, then you have got to readjust your lifestyle somewhat. See, the treaties never to be interpreted by the stipulations written by your enemy. They can be used, and that's what actually the falsifiers or the chief of councils are doing. And the government of the day is accommodating them. Now, they can never use this because then they wouldn't get funded. Eventually, we will tap into what is owed to the people or the tribe, meaning the people. And it won't be anyway, in any way that the government is presently distributing monies to First Nations, who are nothing more than a corporate charter, uh, the AFN, another corporate charter, district chiefs, corporate charter. They're not legally Indians anymore, is what I'm saying. They are not. So they're misleading people. Now, getting back to those that who appear periodically to try and bring it out as best they can. Well, I encourage them to get it right. Otherwise, quit it themselves. Quit it. Don't be going out there when you cannot present it properly. English is full of trickery, and a lot of them don't understand it. You know, but I want them to know it from A to Z, and not have to be so repetitious when they present it. So I do school some of them so that they'll get it right, not to be in any way harsh upon them or to be judgmental towards them. Because some of them, they, like I said, they put the cart before the horse, and I got to come along and correct them. Not in a demeaning way, like I said, but they'll get it right and quit doing this because that's what was given to me to do, not them.
Well, I
So when
know
they
that
step ahead of,
I know that you've actually um, taken what you know and used it in actual courtrooms with, fighting against the second law, domestic law, and you've been
yeah,
successful not 12 times, 13 times, and you're still doing it on occasion.
yeah,
I've witnessed you in court a couple of times, and I have to say that you're very effective. And you're like Perry Mason or the Lincoln lawyer. You're very very good, and you can hold your own, and you speak very well. And even the cops get pissed off at you, but and you don't
yeah.
hold anything back.
No, I cannot.
I can't see anybody else doing what you do.
Nobody has. Some of them go to the courts and they claim to be a signatory Indian because they heard the term and they know that it works. So someone will claim that, oh, I got off the charge. Well, if you're just trying to get off the charge, you're not a signatory Indian. You know, you're lying. Eventually it will catch up. So what I've done is I've taken time. I've studied not thoroughly the white man's world of law, but I know their expressions, how they use Latin terms, how to interpret them, as well as being able to present tribal law exacting. It's got to be exacting, otherwise you make one mistake, they'll know, and they'll hold that in judgment against you. They can't sit in judgment where I'm concerned, because I've gone through the process of establishing myself, as you mentioned, as somebody who's knowledgeable beyond Perry Mason. I could tell Perry Mason, move over, chum, take a back seat. But that takes time. So for the time that I spent, I had to, because I'm up against a whole world. It's actually universal, where they have the similar courts everywhere.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Now,
Speaking of Perry Mason, I noticed on the intro on the opening scenes of his show, which was what 1963 or something.
yeah, yeah,
There's law books and it goes in tight on the law books, and it says juris secundum.
Yeah, corpus juris secundum. But juris secundum, that's a shortcut. Juris means law. Secundum, second law.
So
So that's what the United States goes by. Second law, as well as any corporate entities such as Canada. They can't be a sovereign. So they're claiming in 1982, when they received a constitution from England, that all of a sudden that made them a sovereign under England. You can't be under another sovereignty if you're a sovereign. But that's what they're claiming. They're a sovereign under England. I'm sorry, then you are not a sovereign. You're a corporation belonging to England. Very
well,
simple.
that's what these organizations, that they say. Well, we have constitutional rights. We have the constitutional right to self-government. We have the constitutional right to go after Danielle Smith. I mean, what
No.
the hell?
No. See where she could be held for treason, but it certainly cannot be another, especially corporate charter under the government of Canada, which these uh, so-called sovereign chiefs are. They are not sovereign. They're not even Indians legally. They are a corporation, a corporate charter belonging to Canada. That's all they are. So when they start to accuse Smith, well, she's also part of a corporation, an elective system, the same as they are. None of them are appointed. And when you swear allegiance, as Danielle Smith had to the lieutenant general of the lieutenant governor, I'm sorry, of the province, who represents the crown, then you turn around and try to pull something like she has. She got her feet in two canoes, and you know what happens when those canoes part? You're in the drink. So she's making some statements that are so outlandish. I can't accept them. As a legal advisor, I could see right through it. So she's just like those chiefs that point a finger at each other. That's all they're doing.
Well, these these chiefs in Alberta, the Treaty 6, 7, and 8. I'm not sure if I'm getting the numbers right, but they're saying that they passed a resolution at their big meeting, and the resolution says we will get the RCMP or the Crown to charge Danielle Smith with treason under the Criminal Code of Canada. So
no, that's ludicrous. That is ludicrous. See where, like I say, they're in the same boat. They're a part of elective system. The chiefs have no power whatsoever. All they have is budgets, and those budgets allow them to go and hold press conferences, go to places that the average individual cannot. Well, see where they can go to the legislature, they can go and yell at the legislature steps, like I've seen one of them from Fort McMurray. All the crowds are, yeah, yeah, yeah. You beaks off and says things that are meaningless. Oh, we're going to do this. Let's see you do it. See, I'm trying to, and all of this, trying to educate these corporate, empty-headed chiefs, because they're elected by being popular among the people or by being able to scrape up enough money or steal it to buy the votes of the people, control them. That's all it is. So it's not legal.
Yeah, well, they're
It's
also
not
under
Indian.
they're also under the Indian Act,
Exactly.
and have been since 1867 or whenever. And on Danielle Smith's part, she told them to basically shove it. She says, "You guys are check yourselves, and
Yes.
what you're doing is disgraceful," which
Yeah.
made
Well,
made for great headlines. But
yeah. I'm not in any way saying, oh, Danielle Smith is right. No, she's not right either. Neither one of them are. So like I said, all they're doing is pointing fingers at each other, and yet they come from the same nest. Corporate charter, elective system.
Is
As
there
they say, same crap, different pile.
is there a way, and I don't think there is, but I'll put the question out there anyway. Smith and all the other provincial and territorial premiers are part of Canada, which is second law. Now, can a second law entity supersede the original title holders? No, they can't. But they can with
No,
the people
no,
that are under the Indian Act.
that's it. See, it comes down basically to control. So in actuality, if you're under a corporate charter, you're a slave. The native, the term native, people should try to understand. You're identifying, when you identify as a native, you're saying, I'm subservient to another power over me. Well, that's what the province is. And the federal government is giving the provinces more control in relation to Indian affairs. Because a lot of the chief and councils today, they're under the province by choice. Education, where does their boards on the reserve, the education boards, where do they get their instructions? The province, the provincial board of education. Ultimately, that's who could shut them down. So all of these things that they're talking about, they're screaming. They don't understand. They have no idea or any concept what sovereignty is. And they can't in any way use the law that I teach them because I'm sorry, they've already committed treason against their own tribe. See, everybody in this world, I don't care who you are, even if you're Donald Trump, you're born into a tribe, I'm sorry, a clan. But most of them don't give a shit. They don't care because they're in a position through an elective system to buy their way or become popular by lying to the people, saying all the right things that people want to hear, get themselves elected, not appointed. And the true sovereignty, you're appointed for life, not for 2-year terms, and you're not elected. You're appointed by the matriarchal authority of your tribe. It's very simple. Did you know at one time the descendants of the Roman Empire, not England, but before their time, when they're actually the Romacos, and their Senate, they had clan mothers. Did you know that Nero, Emperor Nero, Roman Emperor, he answered to his mother, who was a clan mother in the Roman Senate, and he had her killed. You know why? After that, patriarchal system.
Okay.
Got it? So they were also, they knew they were born tribal. They're descendants of different tribes. But they wanted to put in place a system where they could control other nations, other tribes, conquer them using weapons of war, which is against tribal law, ultimately, weapons of war and destruction. And today, police action and mind control. They did it way back then. Same thing as that you find today. It's just been perfected to what they call the educational system. So, a lot of people, they laugh when I tell them, but it's true. They say, well, you seem like an intelligent guy. Why did you drop out of school? I dropped out of grade 8. And I respond to them honestly, tell them, I dropped out so they couldn't fail me. You know, you see all the people being condemned because they're failures. They didn't finish their high school. They didn't finish, what a lie. So I'm successful and I feel successful as an individual, and I'm comfortable with who I am. Took many years to acquire knowing who I am. And that's what people should be seeking, knowing who they are. And the only way they're going to find out is through a proper tribal educational system.
which is what you're
And
doing.
exactly what I'm doing wherever I go. A lot of people don't want to be around me because, oh, I'm tired of hearing it. Well, start living it, you won't hear it.
Well, it's a
Yep.
difficult, like even myself. I mean, I'm hiding under the Treaty 5, which I have uh, grandfathers who signed it. And I'm thinking that as a person who is under those treaties, that I do not agree with the Indian Act system, and I would prefer to see the treaties at the international level, the true international level, and use that status to get us out of this shit that we're in right now.
Exactly. And it can be done.
Well,
See,
yeah,
treaties
that's
and interpreted properly, the treaty will render you a protection, but they're not interpreted properly. Everyone goes by the stipulations of a treaty written by your enemy. That's who wrote the stipulations, not our people. So they're coerced into signing it. You know,
mm,
they're all
mm,
they, it was done out of expediency on the part of the government. So force was used, starvation, everything, control. It's been said openly, and we know uh, from different sources, and some of even their own written books, their own meaning, the white world. They quoted Indian affairs officials right down to those who controlled at the reservation level, Indian agents saying, we got to make these Indians lazy. They're too industrious. As directly coming, quoting from an agent who was watching over the Dakotas when they came up here. They have no treaty. Sitting Bull knew international law, not as we talk about it today. He lived it. He knew who he was. And when he addressed that commission, he never spoke English. He spoke pure Dakota. So he was speaking pure international law. When he told them, I'm here and I'm a chief by the will of the Great Spirit. In other words, the will of the Great Spirit, the reference, the Great Spirit considered women of the clans as his daughters, and the reference therein, the tribal book of enlightenment. All right. The reference therein as angels or pure light. I put it out in one document. See, the elite of the world, they know all this. Not as we do. They have to be aware of tribal people and that it may rise again. And they know that it is rising. And there's no way they can stop it. Because they're guilty of a crime for putting Indians in a position they're in. Even those who are ignorant as hell, meaning they don't know and some of them don't want to know. It's because of the forced educational system, all of it. You know, but first of all, it was leave that Indian dumb. And what happened south of the border with some of our relatives? When they started to come into the white man's world and express themselves with the white man's language after they learned it, they passed a law in 1904 wiping out the Indians' educational system because it was proven beyond question that the Indian was above average intelligence above average intelligence of the white man after he learned English. So they wiped out the education. This guy's too smart. We got to put an end to this.
well, just like up
Now,
here, there was some people were better at farming than the white farmers, so the white farmers complain, so the Indian
yes,
agent takes away their cows and plows or whatever.
that's
Speaking of which,
exactly what happened. Speaking of which,
speaking of which, there have been instances, through the second law, through the juris secundum, through Canadian domestic courts, where the treaties have had some success. And let's say the medicine chest, so we get medical coverage, to be as cunning as the white man. So we get post-secondary education. Not much else. What about taxation? Some of these guys who whose head office is in an urban reserve in the middle of a city, they don't pay taxes. I work
Yeah.
for an organization that is working for Indians, Métis, Inuit, but we are not located on a reserve in a fake office or otherwise. I pay income tax. So how can I make the government of Canada cease and desist from taking income tax from my check, and while we're at it, pay me back all those freaking taxes that they've been taking off me for the last 20, 30 years?
Yes, you've got a good issue that we should discuss. I'll put it straight out as short as I can. The treaty, interpreted properly, is quite simple. It can be based only upon peace only, peace, and that comes from the foundation of international law. Of the 6 treaties that make up all international law, including today, three of them are Indian. Wampum belts, peace pipe treaties, canes of authority. Now, having said that, some people say, well, I'd like to see that happen. Well, make it happen, because that's who you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be a citizen of a tribe that, in actuality, formed the foundation of international law that every nation must abide by. They don't, because they've managed to make our people dumb, numb. Sad to say. I'm not cutting the people up. That's an observation that not only I have observed through time, I was at one time the same way. I was at a point where I didn't care what happened anymore. Things were so bad. So I started to realize I got to get out of this. So when I started to wake up spiritually, I started to get somewhere. But the point of it is, that's what was lacking in my life, and that's the worst attack that ever happened to our people. The despiritualization through a process that does not belong to us. Education, everything. And to go back to what you mentioned about the authority that these Indian agents had, yes, it's true. The example was Dakotas. I read a book that I picked up some years back, and it says right in the book, as a matter of fact, our chief showed it to me. I mean, a real chief, not elected. He showed the book to me, and I read it, and it says right in the book that the Dakotas, when they first came here, they're invited to live in places like Pipestone, Sioux Valley, where they were actually living somewhere else. So when they did so, then they started to receive implements for farming and such. Well, they farmed collectively. They were so good at it, for example, uh, the wheat that they sold to the wheat board in Brandon, it was a higher quality than the average white farmer. That's where the jealousy came in. Now, so what happened? The Indian agent, they do reports regularly to Canada. So they make the reports, and one of them said for in the case of the Dakotas, well, then we'll make them individual farmers instead of being a collective. So they made them individual farmers. They were still successful as farmers individually. Eventually, It's right in the book itself. And the quote is this. He was so angry, he said straight out, we have to make these Indians lazy. So a lot of the implements for farming no longer came to Dakotas. So they were pretty well shut down.
Ration.
And they said, yeah, and he said it straight out. We got to make them lazy because they were so successful. You see what I mean? Now, again, people don't realize this, but 95% of the world's food, including at one time Africa and most of Europe, all of Europe, they were starving. Now, what caused that? There is so in depth, I don't want to go into it right now, but they did rituals that caused it. Now, so the rituals they did sometimes it lasted 2 years. So they ran out of seedlings. So they asked, and we had, remember now, we had treaties with Norway, long before this Canada, we had treaties with the white tribes. So according to those treaties, we were obligated by treaty to feed a starving world, which we did. So that's why, when people say this, or especially Indians, when they do the research properly, they realize we fed a starving world. Most of the seedlings came from North America. We allowed our plants, fruits, and everything to be grown around the world. We fulfilled our treaty obligation to the world, and they benefited. So when they make claims like, oh, the Italians, tomato, that came from us. Do you know that one time the tomato was part of a ceremony? And tomato is actually a fruit, and it was declared. It was declared. It's not a vegetable; it's a fruit. It was declared openly in the United States because they knew that tomatoes were used in an Indian ritual or ceremony. So it was called the devil's fruit. And white people were not allowed to consume the devil's fruit. Isn't that interesting?
Well, it is. I always thought that the Italians or the Romans were, eating pasta with tomato sauce since they crucified Jesus, or even before that. That's just an assumption that I always made.
And we fed a starving world long before that. The white tribes were fighting the Romans, all right? That's when the rituals were used. So the earth could no longer grow food for the Romans or us. So we had to feed the starving world. We allow for our fruits and vegetables to be grown all over the world.
Well, that's a whole realm of for lack of a better term, that's a whole world of ancient history that we'll have to get into on another night. But let's just
Yes.
leave it. Let's just leave it that tonight we've discussed the people who are pretending to know about international law, and they're fucking it up.
Yeah.
There's the issue of the Assembly of Treaty Chiefs in Alberta, trying to use domestic law to dissuade Premier Smith from separating from Canada. And we've got some other issues such as taxation, which is I'm very interested in. Let's
Yep.
leave it at that for tonight, and let's talk about going after the Crown to stop the taxation of Indians.
It can be done. It can be done. See,
Okay.
when the people start to understand exactly what I am saying when I tell them the treaty, properly interpreted, can only be based upon peace. So everything else that has happened to the people is a crime. And people understand that. And I'm probably one of the last ones that can address that crime. I want more people to be able to do it. That's why we're having these sessions. But we don't go around charging anybody anything. I could have done that many years ago. but I'm not a sellout. I believe in the people, and even those who turned against us, I believe someday they'll see the light. And it won't be the light that the Christians talk about. It'll be the real thing. So with that, should we say au revoir?
All right. All right. Au revoir.
All right. Bonsoir. Bonsoir, mon ami.
All right.
All right. Have a good evening.
You too.
I will. So.
Okay, I'm gonna see if it caught.